But the fact is, the Department of Homeland Security, they ran amok. We saw the images. We saw the images of Renee Good get gunned down in the streets.
The solution is keep more Americans vulnerable.
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, not at all.
When we have TSA lines of 5 hours in airports, we have all these things going on. Is it even remotely reasonable?
What I believe is that Democrats and Republicans need to get their shit together. Everybody does at this particular time.
We're voting to reopen it.
Kash Patel.
The House is on recess.
As he just
they
mentioned,
already voted. It's sitting in the Senate.
Kash Patel, Kristi Noem, look as if they're swimming at a time where we need strong leadership.
In today's video, Bakari Sellers shuts down Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip. What Bakari pushes back on is the idea that you can blame one party for security failures when the same leaders making those accusations are often the ones controlling the agencies, the budgets, and the policy decisions. When it comes to Homeland Security, the reality is that funding, oversight, and strategy all require cooperation between the White House and Congress. And historically, the biggest security failures in the US haven't come from one party alone. They've come from political gridlock, intelligence breakdowns, and leaders pointing fingers instead of fixing the problem. But before we dive into today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy these videos.
Tonight, Donald Trump says that someone should be blamed if there is an Iranian attack on the homeland.
Has Iran activated any sleeper cells inside the U.S.? There's reports that they have pressed that trigger button to activate those cells, at least abroad.
Well, they've been trying for a long time. We've been very much on top of it. One of the things we have to do is get the Democrats to stop the Democrat shutdown, because, as you know, the apparatus that looks into that, Schumer and the Democrats have shut it down, which tells you they probably hate our country a lot. We're watching every single one of them. Yeah, we know a lot about them, but the shutdown doesn't allow us to do what we have to do.
Anxieties are already high, and over the weekend, 2 men were charged with using a weapon of mass destruction and providing material support to ISIS after a pair of homemade bombs were thrown at anti-Muslim protesters outside of the New York City mayor's residence on Saturday. That attack, according to the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, is not related to what's going on in Iran. So is it fair to blame Democrats when things like that happen?
Abby, I think it's unconscionable that Democrats are not funding the Department of Homeland Security when we're in a military conflict with the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. I mean, it is at this point in time, the notion that Democrats will say, well, we need change in policy. You've had the secretary fired. You've had Homeland replaced. You've had ICE agents pull out of Minneapolis. This is a pure political stunt that they're playing. And it's incredibly risky right now to be doing that when we're at war with the greatest sponsor of terror in the world.
Respectfully, we control no lever of power in government right now. Democrats are in the minority in everything. So I think it's unfair to put blame solely on the Democrats for horrific actions that are happening
you know as well
in
as
New York.
I do that you need 60 votes in the Senate, and so all Republicans have voted to fund the government, and it's only Democrats.
Mark, I have a great deal of respect for you. I love you to death, but I think that what is incomprehensible is the fact that we have seen the Department of Homeland Security, and we have a short memory, murder Americans in the streets, and that is the reaction. And yes, you're right. Times have changed. Things are different now. We're at war now. I agree with that. I wish that we could have 8 people who run this country, right, who are the most powerful people in the world, get in a room and work this out. But the fact is, the Department of Homeland Security, they ran amok. We saw the images. We saw the images of Renee Good get gunned down in the streets.
The solution is keep more Americans vulnerable.
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, not at all.
For starters, blaming one party for every security concern just doesn't line up with reality. Homeland security policy is controlled primarily by the executive branch, meaning the president and the administration running agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the intelligence community. Congress controls funding, yes, but the day-to-day operations, strategy, and threat monitoring are handled by those agencies regardless of which party is in the minority on Capitol Hill. There's also the bigger fact that terror threats inside the US have historically come from a wide range of sources, not just foreign sleeper cells. According to the Department of Homeland Security's own threat assessments, the most consistent domestic threat over the last several years has actually been homegrown violent extremism, particularly individuals radicalized online. That means the security challenge is far more complex than simply pointing to one geopolitical conflict or blaming one political party. Another thing often left out of these conversations is that the DHS budget has continued to grow for years, regardless of which party controls Congress. In fact, the department now operates with a budget of over $90 billion annually, making it one of the largest security agencies in the federal government. So the idea that the entire national security apparatus suddenly shuts down because of political disagreements doesn't really reflect how these systems function. And when people talk about sleeper cells or foreign threats, intelligence experts usually emphasize something important. Counterterrorism relies heavily on coordination between federal agencies, local law enforcement, and international intelligence partners. That cooperation continues even during political disputes in Washington because the professionals working inside those agencies keep operating regardless of partisan fights.
Let's not fund the important parts of
There's
DHS
another point to be made here, which is that it is a little bit precious for the president to be crying about the Democrats not funding the security apparatus. Just a few weeks before all the shutdown stuff was going on, Kash Patel fired from the FBI a group of officers. Guess what? Their job is to study Iran. That was done by his FBI director. It was not done by the Democrats. This is an administration that has systematically weakened our own ability to deal with these sleeper cells. And now to say that we should be worried about sleeper cells, that's a little rich, don't you think?
Well, there's more. You're acknowledging their sleeper cells. And you're basically you're acknowledging the solution is, hey, let's not fund
these
guys.
Why did we fire the FBI guys?
Also, the House
they tried to kill my friend here in New York City.
The Trump administration on a lot of things. That doesn't get us here and say, hey, the solution is let's not fund Homeland Security.
They tried to kill a friend of mine, an Iranian American friend of mine here in New York City. There's no doubt that there are sleeper cells. We should be doubling up on the FBI's capacity to do that.
Democrats and Republicans have been highlighting
the people who know how to do this is not the great place to start.
But does anyone here believe that we should keep the Department of Homeland Security, that's the name of it, indefinitely shut down to try to force ICE policy changes on an agency that's already funded until 2029, when you acknowledge there are sleeper cells, when we all see radical Islamic terrorists throwing IEDs in New York City, when we saw a radical Muslim terrorist shoot up a bar in Austin, when we had tornadoes in Oklahoma and Michigan this weekend, when we have TSA lines of 5 hours in airports, we have all these things going on. Is it even remotely reasonable?
What I believe is that Democrats and Republicans need to get their shit together. Everybody does at this particular time.
We're voting to reopen it.
Kash Patel.
The House is on recess.
As he just
they
mentioned,
already voted. It's sitting in the Senate.
Kash Patel, Kristi Noem look as if they're swimming at a time where we need strong leadership, and we don't have it. That's what we're thirsting for.
Now, there's also the reality that the US has already faced this exact issue before. After the 9/11's attacks, multiple investigations, including the 9/11's Commission report, concluded that the biggest problem wasn't a lack of warnings about terrorism. The problem was that intelligence agencies failed to coordinate and maintain consistent oversight, partly because resources and attention had been redirected or fragmented. Another fact that often gets overlooked is that domestic security threats today are far more complicated than a single foreign adversary. The Department of Homeland Security's own threat assessments have consistently said the most persistent danger inside the US in recent years has come from domestic extremists and lone actor attacks, not just organized foreign sleeper cells. That means counterterrorism requires broad intelligence capabilities across multiple types of threats, not just focusing on one geopolitical conflict. And when it comes to government funding fights, history shows these standoffs often end up hurting security agencies themselves. During past government shutdowns, thousands of DHS employees and intelligence analysts were furloughed, which disrupted ongoing investigations and slowed intelligence sharing between federal and local law enforcement. So the broader point Bobby and Bakari Bakari are pushing is that national security shouldn't be treated like a political weapon. If leaders are genuinely concerned about terrorism or sleeper cells, the logical step isn't to point fingers on TV. It's to strengthen intelligence agencies, maintain experienced personnel, and ensure the institutions responsible for protecting the country actually have the stability and resources they need to do their jobs.
Made it interesting, and I think you laid out actually a lot of changes that suggest that the administration acknowledged that they needed to make a change in terms of how their immigration enforcement was operating. So, I mean, it seems to me they've already moved quite a bit. There are only a few other things like masks and reinforcing Fourth Amendment protections that would get them over the finish line. Why can't we get over the finish line? And why not just lay that all out on the table and say, hey, Democrats, you wanted this, here you go. Let's open the government up.
I think Republicans, you just said, have given a lot of concessions on the policy they had, Abby. I think they're basically have given them a lot of things that Democrats asked for. At this point, again, in Sabrina's point about Republicans controlling all levels of government, it requires 60 votes in the Senate. Every Republican has voted for it. Every Democrat has voted against it.
But don't you think that by comparison to the scope of the issue, masks on DHS agents and, again, reiterating existing Fourth Amendment protections are actually kind of small ball?
I mean, it's not even.
It seems to me like that seems like an easy thing that Republicans could say. Yeah, we're going to make some adjustments on that. Let's reopen the government.
I agree with you. I agree with you on the masking, Abby. But I think it's small ball on both sides.
Yeah, and
I just said that. I literally just said that.
Exactly.
I mean, we don't have any.
All right.
I mean, like, thank you. I'm sorry, but yeah, leadership matters.
There you go. We
leadership matters.
came to an agreement on that one. Everyone, thank you very much for being here. Next, we'll remember the 7th American soldier that was lost in this conflict. We'll be right back.
The point backing Abby's side actually reflects something a lot of legal experts and civil liberties groups have been saying for a while. Immigration enforcement isn't just about policy goals. It also has to stay within constitutional boundaries. For example, the question of agents wearing masks during enforcement operations has become a real debate among legal scholars and former law enforcement officials. In most federal policing situations, officers are required to clearly identify themselves and the agency they represent, partly to protect civilians from impersonation and to maintain accountability. That principle goes back to long-standing policing standards and court rulings tied to the Fourth Amendment, which protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures. There's also the broader constitutional issue. The Fourth Amendment isn't optional just because immigration enforcement is involved. Courts have repeatedly ruled that even federal immigration agents must follow due process rules when conducting raids, detentions, or searches. In fact, several federal court cases over the years have struck down enforcement actions where agents detained individuals without probable cause or relied solely on racial profiling. Another thing often overlooked in these debates is that immigration enforcement agencies already operate with massive resources and authority. The Department of Homeland Security's budget is over $90 billion, and agencies like ICE and Customs and Border Protection have thousands of officers nationwide. When groups ask for clear identification, warrants, or stronger constitutional safeguards, the argument isn't that enforcement shouldn't happen, it's that enforcement should be done legally and transparently. And historically, when enforcement crosses constitutional lines, it tends to backfire politically and legally.